Vaughn, I know that you're joining us from Columbia, South Carolina, where the Republican voters are casting their presidential primary ballots today. While Trump appears to be making an 11th hour pitch to the African-American voting bloc, saying black voters like him more because of his indictments and mugshot. How are voters there reacting to that?
Right. I think the question comes down to a general election here, Alex. In South Carolina, just 7% of black voters identify themselves as Republicans. And here today, it's Donald Trump versus Nikki Haley. But this is notable because Donald Trump and his campaign believes that he can continue to make inroads with black voters across the country. We saw in 2020 election, he won 12% of the black vote, which was the highest amount a Republican has received in decades. And our recent NBC News polling at the end of 2023 showed him with 16% support. That's what makes Donald Trump's remarks here notable, because in his version of trying to appeal and connect with black voters, Donald Trump is trying to make inroads the way that he sees himself as being able to. I want to let you listen to part of his remarks last night to Conservative Black Foundation here. Take a listen.
The black people are so much on my side now because they see what's happening to me happens to them. The mugshot, we've all seen the mugshot. And you know who embraced it more than anybody else? The black population. It's incredible. You see black people walking around with my mugshot. I'm being indicted for you, the black population.
Of course, Alex, Donald Trump suggesting that he now is also being discriminated against, like blacks across America have been discriminated against. And for Donald Trump, this is the same man that back in 2019, during his first impeachment proceeding, suggested that he was going through a lynching. So for Donald Trump, this is political here, and in his own words, an effort in which he's trying to connect, obviously, in a way that is quite questionable. But for Donald Trump, the Republican nominee, somebody who is trying to make inroads in the way that he sees he's able to.
Okay, Vaughn, thank you so much. Perfect setup for my next conversation, so I appreciate you. Charles, how do you interpret Trump's message to black conservatives? And let me make sure we got this right. He says he is being indicted for you, meaning the black population. Really?
You know, Alex, I think that Donald Trump was struggling with his prepositions. He should have said, I'm being indicted by you, because when you think about who's leading the charge against Donald Trump to hold him accountable, you have Alvin Bragg, you have Letitia James, and you have Fani Willis, and these are all three black people who are invested in the upholding of democracy. Listen, at the end of the day, Alex, Donald Trump is not going to win over a significant amount of black voters or the black electorate. However, what he does understand, because there has been a significant amount of conversation in the public sphere and in the media about Biden and his campaign struggling to win over black voters, is that if he can subtract just a little bit, all he needs is about 10%, and then the election is his. And so that's what he's trying to do. He doesn't necessarily think that he's going to be able to win over all of the black electorate that is available. But if he can just take away enough from Joe Biden, then he ultimately gets a victory. He understands that, and he's trying to cater to that. Now, associating black people with criminality inherently is not necessarily a way to get the job done. But ultimately, this is who he's pandering to and what he's trying to achieve.
Speaking of criminality, his legal bills in New York are rapidly approaching their due dates. He is now asking one New York court for an unsecured stay on that $83 million fine that he owes to E. Jean Carroll for defamation. Then in another court, Judge Engoron entered his judgment this week. Trump now owes, are you ready for it, more than $450 million in the civil fraud case, with $111,000 in interest being added every day. So will he be forced, Charles, to come up with all this cash?
Well, it depends. I mean, he's saying that he's rich and very rich. And if he, in fact, does have this liquid, then no. But ultimately, he is likely going to have to let go of some of his toys, which we all know are things that he values extremely deeply. And so in order to satisfy these judgments, which are not going anywhere, and even as you seek to appeal them, as you've already laid out, Alex, you still have to have the cash on hand necessary in order to pay them in the event that you can, and he will lose the appeal. And so Donald Trump inevitably is going to have to start having a fire sale on some of his most beloved properties and assets in order to find the liquid cash available to satisfy these judgments.
Well, and here's why, because the New York AG says she's prepared to go after his properties if he can't come up with the cash. Let's take a listen to some of what she said and then a reaction from Donald Trump's lawyer.
We are prepared to make sure that the judgment is paid to New Yorkers. And yes, I look at 40 Wall Street each and every day.
She has no chance if she thinks she is going to take him down. If that was her goal, which we all know very well it was, and she got a strong assist there in court. But I will tell you this, that goal will not be successful.
Do you, Charles, see it coming to this? Are his properties at risk?
Yes, absolutely. They are absolutely at risk. I think that his attorneys have gotten very good at posturing and playing to an audience in the court of public opinion, and that's fine, well and good. Even at a trial, I think that has its place. But what we are talking about now is a judgment, post-judgment, and even as an appeal may be pending, he is still going to have to come up with that liquidity. And that is not something that he has on hand and may not necessarily be able to get without letting go some of his properties. So when you're talking about these different civil judgments and the interest on these judgments continuing to accrue at a daily rate basis of nearly 6 figures per day, this is not someone who can afford to take this lightly, literally cannot afford to take this lightly, and will ultimately have to figure out which of his assets he chooses to liquidate in order to satisfy these judgments.